Okay, good. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming and welcome to the first senior exhibition of 2026. Any student who volunteers to go first in the senior shows automatically is like a winner, right? Like there's a soft spot in my heart to anybody who goes first because it's not easy to be ready on time, but for a student like Kayla, it's like, if you know Kayla, you know how on top of everything she is and so organized. But I also kind of like want to use that as a way to illustrate like kind of like the myth of being an artist. I think a lot of us think about an artist as someone who works by themselves and solitary, and like there's a lot of other stereotypes that go around with being an artist, but like it really is so helpful to have a team mentality when you're in a senior cohort. And so just wanted to also acknowledge just how much you've added to the senior cohort as like thinking of it as a team. It's a really useful mentality to think about in the arts too, and just our reliance on everybody to sort of be better together, right? And I'm sure I don't need to explain that to any of you about how useful that is to be together and work on something together, right? So anyway, so I just wanted to introduce the show, but everybody knows Kayla, but just take a minute to just sort of like congratulate her in front of everybody else, and just welcome you to the show as well. And it's just such a fantastic exhibition, and we're really excited to hear from you. So what we'll do is just Kayla will share a few words, and then we'll open up the floor to any questions that you might have about specific pieces or processes or anything like that, and then you're welcome to just continue to enjoy the show and refreshments. So anyway, but thank you.
Okay, so I'm Kayla, and just for those of you who don't know a little bit about me, I'm a graphic design major and a sport management major, and at North Park I'm a part of the softball team, obviously. And I'm also on North Park Media, which we do photography, social media, and coverage of all of our athletics. And then I'm also a part of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, our SAC committee, where we work with student athletes just in trying to host fun events. And then outside of North Park, I coach fast pitch softball. This is my 4th year coaching. It is my 2nd year with Cubs Charities. So softball in general has just been a huge part of my life, and growing up and just continuing to play obviously through college, and then continuing to coach post-grad. And then going back to North Park Media is last year basically I started doing graphics for them, and I would cover all different sporting teams just doing graphics, live updates, and then I eventually bought a camera at the end of last year, and that's when I started taking photos. And when I was taking these photos, I was originally just looking for action shots, like anything that I thought athletes or any viewer would like. But I kind of realized that as an athlete myself, I have a different perspective on the game, and so I could take pictures of people on the sidelines and on the bench that maybe the viewers aren't seeing or the audience isn't seeing. And I knew that that gave me a fresh perspective where I can look for moments to capture, whether that's teammates celebrating after a win or after a great play, or kind of this like look of defeat. And I knew that that's something that I could look for and I could really draw on just from my own personal experience. So that was something that I really wanted to include in my first gallery here. So a lot of what you see is these photos that I've taken, and then most of them are manipulated afterwards, either in Photoshop or Lightroom, and a lot of that was just to kind of emphasize that feeling that I wanted to give to the viewers, and a lot of it is also just left up to interpretation of what I want the audience to feel, or maybe what the athletes themselves are feeling, and maybe like how their feeling can relate to you guys, especially my team as athletes themselves. And then going into my second gallery space here, I wanted to draw a lot on my personal experiences, so just specifically softball, because that's been the biggest part of me growing up and my main sport. So I have a lot of images of me just playing from when I was younger all the way up until now, as well as some archival or objects on the side just from my 4 years here at North Park. Just a lot of things that have meant a lot to me, from my teammates to physical uniforms, and yeah, that is all. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it, and all of your support through making my show and then just showing up. But yeah, I guess if anybody has any questions, I can answer that now.
Draw some parallels, if you would, Kayla, between the resilience and the years in softball and your art, and how you think about that and how you commit yourself to that.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I was working through when I was making my show was athlete identity, which you can kind of read in my exhibition statement. So I want to draw on the fact that as an athlete, whether that's like hours of practices or games or building my relationships with my teammates, all of that has shaped me as a person outside of softball. And that was something that I wanted to draw on these works, whether that's putting these athletes in a different light outside of their game, outside of the actions, I guess, and kind of just showing more of their emotion. So that's something that I kind of put myself into their shoes when I was creating my work, is just drawing on these experiences that have shaped me and shaped them, that they'll carry on with them throughout life, even like after they're done playing the sport.
Can you talk a little bit about the aesthetic choices in terms of like display or material, like how that influenced like the meaning of the work for you, and just like how you come to those decisions?
So a lot of my work is printed out pretty large scale, and then obviously I have the banners hanging on the other side of that wall. I knew that I wanted a lot of my work in Gallery 1 to be displayed big because I feel like it produces this heavy type of emotion, and it feels a lot heavier and overwhelming than maybe a small piece would. And then obviously in this gallery it's also completely black and white, which originally wasn't intentional. I kind of just liked how it looked aesthetically, and then I thought more into the fact that I'm removing the colors of North Park colors. So I'm removing blue and gold, and therefore it can be related to anybody, because I especially wanted it to appeal to those who aren't student athletes. So that's what I was thinking about aesthetically, and just making sure that the actual size of them too is having this overwhelming feeling. And then the reason I chose banners specifically in the back is because I talk about it in my exhibition statement, but the actual like height that a banner is hung at, or the material of it, is usually representing like a legacy or something that's hung for a long time. And obviously this is a different case, it's hung for a short amount of time, but it's the same idea of kind of giving that legacy to a specific individual instead of like a whole team.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there any piece in particular that like stood out to you, or one that was like particularly difficult to capture?
I don't know if any were necessarily difficult to capture, but this track piece on the wall is probably one of my favorites and stands out to me the most, just because the movement in it, the kind of like lack of faces that are seen in all of my other pieces. So that's one that stands out to me.
I imagine that like the decision-making of what to do with each image and how to manipulate it, and kind of just comes from having a huge collection of images to begin with, and then you can like edit those down. And that seems to like be a super useful thing for everybody who's like gonna have a show next year to pay attention to. Just like the higher your inventory is,
like narrowing down my work.
Narrow down, exactly, like just making decisions, like having a lot of ingredients is great, but sometimes overwhelming too. So just think, it's like, I would love to hear more about your process and just like how you make decisions.
So specifically for these and making my decisions, obviously I've taken thousands of pictures, but these are all very recent, so fall of this year or even just this spring. And I know that a big part of me choosing them was I wanted to choose athletes that a lot of us will maybe interact with or see, so I wanted to make sure that those were current athletes at the school, or at least in the last year or two. And then I was also kind of looking for pictures that drew on the same emotion. So specifically in these two, just kind of like looking at their gaze, where they're looking off to. And yeah, that was mostly what I did for this gallery, just also what was drawn to me like emotionally, or maybe a specific picture that I took that I remember the exact moment. Like I was speaking to my team earlier that like I can tell you exactly what happened when I took this photo. Like it was their last game and he was shooting a free throw, and it's just the fact that that's something that I can remember and resonate with just shows that that was an important moment to me, and very clearly then also for the individual in this picture. So that's just mostly how I'm narrowing down my work, is a lot of what comes to emotions it draws on and feelings.
I've got a question that's maybe an extension of that. So there are a lot of pieces that were finished, pretty much finished pieces,
Yeah.
that might have gone through that process of kind of narrowing it down and making this meaningful image. How did you like decide on what to actually put into the space? And like, was that a difficult process of like curating it down? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, I had a whole different set of pictures basically when I did my first critique, and then I decided to put a lot of these in a little bit more last minute. And a lot of my process was kind of talking through identity and what it means to be an athlete and how we carry that on after we graduate, especially with me being a senior. I just wanted to draw on that. So that was how I was narrowing it down, was either drawing on, again, like I've been saying, specific emotions, and then I wanted to kind of hone in on more portrait pieces, seen in my banners and these two here. And then on the other side of the wall, it's just collage pieces, which I was talking about a lot of like time and how athletes impact their spaces. So it was mostly just kind of figuring out what I wanted to talk about, a central theme for my show, and finding images that I knew could explain what I wanted to convey.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think what's nice about that is that some of the other work might go into like other series, like where you're grouping them because they're making a different kind of conversation. So I think it's a really great place to be to, like you were saying, have too much and realize like, oh, well, this does a better job of telling this story. These might do a better job of telling this story.
Thank you. Is that all? All right, well, thank you again for all of you coming. I really appreciate it.